everyone has their own way of grieving, but there are things that are just grotesque and wrong, and that's grotesque and wrong. Here's something that's jarring in a very bad way. Here's an update from the futuristic dystopia that we're currently living in. CNN reports, Stacey Wales spent 2 years working on the victim impact statement she planned to give in court after her brother was shot to death in a 2021 road rage incident. But even after all that time, Wales felt her statement wouldn't be enough to capture her brother Christopher Pelkey's humanity and what he would have wanted to say. So Wales decided to let Pelkey give the statement himself with the help of artificial intelligence. She and her husband created an AI-generated video version of Pelkey to play during his killer sentencing hearing earlier this month that read, in a recreation of Pelkey's own voice, a script that Wales wrote. And in it, the AI version of Pelkey expressed forgiveness to the shooter and said some other things. Now, if this sounds horrifying enough, wait until you see and hear this monstrosity. We're going to play it for you. And this is apparently the video that was played in court. This is, again, the person you're going to see on screen is a dead person who died a few years ago, was murdered, and he was recreated by AI, and a script was written so that from his own mouth, which is not really his own mouth, he would forgive the guy who killed him, and they played this in court. I mean, it's just, well, let's watch it.
I would like to make my own impact statement to Gabriel Horcasitas, the man who shot me. It is a shame we encountered each other that day in those circumstances. In another life, we probably could have been friends. I believe in forgiveness and in God who forgives. I always have, and I still do. Getting old is a gift that not everybody has, so embrace it and stop worrying about those wrinkles. I once played with one of those filters on your phone where you can make yourself look old. I shared it with a cousin of ours years ago. This is the best I can ever give you to what I would have looked like if I got the chance to grow old. Scary, huh? No, really. Thank you to everyone for being here. It means more than you know.
I love that AI. Thank you for that. And as angry as you are, and justifiably angry as the family is, I heard the forgiveness, and I know Mr. Horcasitas appreciated it, but so did I. As I said, I like to think I was going to do that.
If I was the judge, I would have arrested the whole family for that. I would have arrested everybody. I want to make one thing very clear. I want to make this very clear. If I am ever murdered, which, let's be honest, is a pretty plausible scenario, and if anyone makes an AI video with my voice and my likeness where I forgive my killer, I swear I will come back and I will haunt you until you die. It'll be full on like horror movie haunting, okay? You're going to wake up in the middle of the night and there'll be a pale ghostly child standing in the corner of the room silently staring at you. I don't know why people think that small pale children are scary, but I mean, they're in every horror movie, so I guess they do. I don't know how I would arrange to have that kind of haunting. I don't know what the logistics are, but I'll figure out the logistics because I'm not gonna tolerate that. And so the point is, don't. If you make an AI video of me, it better be. I'll tell you what. It better be an incisive, brutal, sarcastic takedown of the guy who killed me. Okay, it better be a daily cancellation of the guy who killed me. That's what I want played in court. I want a victim impact statement where I'm doing a 15-minute monologue that ends with me saying, and that's why the guy who shot me in the head is today canceled. That's what I want. I don't really want that, so please don't do that. But the whole thing is horrifying and bizarre and grotesque. To turn your dead relative into essentially a digital puppet. I mean, that's what this is. It's like it is the same thing in principle as having somebody make a Muppet, like a Sesame Street style puppet of your dead brother, and then having a ventriloquist perform with the puppet in court, up on the witness stand, reading a script that you wrote. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. It's a digital puppet. And it's in very poor taste. It's extremely presumptuous. It's about the most presumptuous thing you could possibly do. Just awful. all around. And I have to say this too, and I know that this will be misinterpreted, but I have to say I'm pretty tired of the cheap forgiveness that is constantly offered to murderers and criminals. Every time we hear a story about some murdering scumbag, we always hear about the loved ones of the victim who immediately offer their forgiveness, right? Sometimes days, sometimes like hours after the fact. They're publicly saying, I forgive you. And look, as Christians, we're called to forgive, but this forgiveness often feels just like cheap and weirdly automatic. I mean, in this case, it's obviously cheap. They're offering forgiveness from the victim using his voice, which means absolutely nothing. Okay, it's like, but in so many cases, even where there's no AI, it still feels cheap. And that's because the first reaction that you should have to your loved one falling victim to a violent crime should be righteous fury. It should be intense, fiery anger. That's normal. That's healthy. That's born from the love that you had for your family member. Forgiveness, if it comes and if it's real, comes much later. Because what does it mean to forgive anyway? Like, what do you mean you're forgiving? Well, it means that you're not, hopefully it doesn't mean that you're saying, oh, I don't want this person to suffer any consequences. Because forgiveness should not mean that. Forgiveness does not mean that the person who did whatever the bad thing is, that they don't suffer consequences. So when you say, I forgive you, like, what do you mean? Well, maybe it means nothing. I think oftentimes it really just means nothing. It doesn't, it's like, in what way do you actually forgive them? Are you, really? When you hear about these, and I don't like to specifically criticize anyone who's mourning the loss of a family member, but there have been even very recent cases that may come to mind of people who lost a family member and like immediately they were out in front of, like right away they were in front of cameras saying, I forgive. And again, what do you mean? What do you mean how? In what way? Or are you just saying that? Because if it means anything, what it should mean, if it means anything, is that you are not, this is the only thing it can mean, actually, really, is that you are not harboring resentment and ill will towards this person. That's what it means to forgive them. Okay, it doesn't mean that they don't suffer consequences. It doesn't mean, depending on what it is, it doesn't mean that you will necessarily trust them again if this is like something in your personal life, someone did something to you. But if it means anything, it means when you say that you forgive the person, you're saying, I'm not harboring ill will towards you. I don't resent you. But that's my point. How could you possibly declare right away that you have no resentment or ill will towards someone who victimized a family member? I mean, how really, like right away, that quickly you have no resentment towards this person? It's just not possible. It shouldn't be possible. So I think people come out and say they forgive right away because they feel like they have to. And now in this case, this is 4 years later. So the thought that I'm offering right now is less. The problem in this case is the way that this forgiveness was offered through an AI puppet. It's just like, and again, you don't want to criticize people everyone has their own way of grieving, but there are things that are just grotesque and wrong, and that's grotesque and wrong. I don't care. Like, no matter who does it, it's still grotesque, it's still wrong. So the problem here is not so much the immediacy of it, because it is years after the fact, but it's the way, but it's still this cheap forgiveness where you're in this case, putting the words in someone else's mouth who's dead. But there's also this other thing that I'm talking about that we've seen in particular recently, where maybe it's not AI, but it's like so quickly afterwards we hear about, I forgive. And I just think so either you've just suffered this horrible thing, you've lost a family member, and you really have a day later you have no resentment or ill will towards this person, Like, it could be that, but that's disordered. That's not natural. That's you should feel that in the immediacy of this event. So if it's not that, then it's just you're just saying it. And I think that people feel like they have to say it. People feel like they have to come out right away and say, I forgive, I forgive. And they feel like they're not allowed to come out and say, you know what, I feel enraged at this person who took my loved one. I want them to feel the wrath of justice. I want them to suffer for what they've done. You rarely hear anyone say that because I think they aren't allowed to feel that kind of righteous fury, even though it's healthy and normal. And also, by the way, good. That's justice. You're allowed to want justice. You should want justice. Okay? And it's biblical. Go read the Psalms sometimes. You know how many Psalms are about wanting evildoers to be brought to justice and to suffer? You know how common of a theme that is? It's very common. And so there's nothing unbiblical or anti-Christian about it. I think this kind of cheap forgiveness is what's unbiblical and anti-Christian, and we see so much of it these days. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.